Now, staying in BC, extreme summertime heat is causing glaciers to retreat. And experts say some of them will be gone in 50 years. That includes the Kokanee Glacier in southeast BC. Let's bring in Fred Thiessen. He's a mountaineer and member of the Friends of West Kootenay Parks, and he's in Nelson. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
Now, you were on the Kokanee Glacier just a couple weeks ago. You said it's a glacier in trouble. Maybe you can explain what you mean.
Well, Hannah, I moved here 50 years ago, and one of the first things I did when I moved here is I went backcountry skiing up on the Kokanee Glacier. And it was a different glacier then than it is now, in that there was much more ice and much more snow. And in the 50 years since I've been here, I've watched the glacier retreat markedly, and the upper mass of the glacier has shrunk. So it's harder to get around up there, and it makes me sad to go up there because what I used to see is not what I see now.
Is there any way you can visually describe it for people who may not have or may not be able to go to glaciers?
Well, a glacier is where there's more snow accumulating than melting. So you have a big icy snowpack. And I think many people have seen pictures of the Columbia ice fields. But here in Nelson, the Kokanee Glacier is the most southerly glacier in the Selkirk Mountains. So it's a small little pocket glacier, north facing, maybe about 3 square kilometers in size or thereabouts. And it's quite high. It's at about 2,500 meters, covered in snow normally. And relatively flat at the top, and then as it goes to the north, it steepens up and goes down towards the valley floor, making for very good skiing for us in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. What will we lose when a glacier like Kokanee disappears?
We'll lose, I guess we'll lose part of our natural landscape. We've come to associate our Western mountains with glaciers, but imagine a lot of our mountains here in southern BC not having glaciers. So we're moving to a drier landscape, and those icy, shimmering mountaintops that we used to see aren't going to be there anymore. So that's the physical side of things. But if you're a mountaineer or a backcountry skier, it's harder to get around on a shrinking glacier, and it'll be definitely very different when the glaciers are gone, in that the approaches to the peaks will be much steeper. And then downslope, we're going to see changes in the hydrological cycle because we're not going to have that icy cold water flowing into our creeks. So water temperatures in creeks will change. The flows will be much, much lower in the late summer and in the fall.
So the lakes and streams will look and feel different too.
That is correct. They'll be warmer for sure because the glaciers add coolness to the water temperature. So yeah, things will definitely change.
Let me ask you this. Looking at the picture now, do you think we may look back at the year 2023 and realize what is at stake when it comes to dealing with global warming?
Or a few years earlier, I think the last 3 or 4 years have been the tipping point where we're really starting to notice that the glaciers are really melting.
How did you start noticing this yourself personally?
Well, I've been a mountaineer for a few years now, and I think even in the early part of the last century, it was well documented that glaciers were retreating, and there's many, I guess, casual users in the 1900s who noted that the glaciers were retreating, and it was talked about, but they didn't use the word climate change at that time. But we've certainly noticed it in the last 10 years that the glaciers are, I think, retreating exponentially relative to how it was before. It's just so noticeable now, and it was less noticeable before.
Let me just ask you before I let you go, how does this personally make you feel? Like, you've been doing this and going to those glaciers for so long in your heart. What do you think when you see this happening?
I'm sad. Because I've come to associate, I guess, a landscape which has glaciers. So when you see them go, it's upsetting because, climate change is real.
I see you get really quite affected by this, and do you feel that people are listening?
I'm hoping so. I think all of the events of this year in particular, particularly with the fires this year, I don't think you can't help but notice that things have changed relative to the way they were, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Well, I'm going to have to end it there, but I really appreciate you coming on and telling us your personal stories about being a mountaineer and the glaciers.
You are welcome.
Fred Thiessen in Nelson, British Columbia, thank you kindly.